But now, back to this afternoon and Nocon on photography.
Hi, I'm Gene Nocon. Today I'm flying off to New York, where I'll be talking to one of America's top fashion photographers. I'll be featuring his work alongside that of a young photographer who is just starting out in the business here in London. He's David A. Bailey, 27 years old, but unlike his namesake, still relatively unknown. He has uncompromising views on the uses of photography and on how fashion pictures reflect black people. 3,000 miles away, Albert Watson has established himself as one of the most sought-after fashion photographers in America today. His work came to the attention of our royal family, and consequently, Albert was asked to take the wedding photographs for the Duke and Duchess of York. He has a glamorous lifestyle, and he has some great stories to tell. So let's go and meet him. Albert Watson is one of the most successful photographers in America today, with over 250 Vogue front covers to his name. Born in Scotland 45 years ago, he tried his hand at a variety of jobs, from computer operator to stonemason's laborer, before choosing photography as a career. In 1971, after 8 years of training, he arrived in Los Angeles to seek his fame and fortune. They say that everything in America is larger than life, and Albert's new studio complex is no exception. Designed by himself, it's the first purpose-built photographic studio in New York, and it costs a staggering $3 million. Figures like this Albert now takes in his stride, but at the beginning of his career, he recalls seeing the advertising manager of Max Factor after his very first shoot.
I went in the next day and he said, I have very good news for you. He said, we're actually going to buy 2 of your photographs. And he said, here's the purchase order for the 2 photographs. So of course, I thought this is wonderful because we were very short of any kind of money at that time. So when I got out of his office there, I ripped open the envelopes to find out there was a $150 purchase order in each envelope. So I was very happy with that. $300 seemed a lot. But then when I got home, I checked it again and found out that in fact it was $1,500 per image. And at that point, I thought they must have made a mistake because that was $3,000. How could it possibly be $3,000? So I checked the next day. The advertising manager said, oh, I'm sorry. He said, that's all we pay. He said, $3,000 is the most we can pay for those 2 shots. So, of course, I immediately backtracked and said, no, it was wonderful. And then at that point, he said, actually, I have some good news for you. He said, we bought another one. He said, so there'll be another $1,500. So at that point in time, I thought, maybe this I loved doing the day's shooting. I had a wonderful time doing the photography. And on top of that, I got paid for it.
Not one to look a gift horse in the mouth, Albert set about making a name for himself. He has now done 256 covers for Vogue, and in 1986, his reputation landed him a unique commission. He was asked to take the still photographs of a great state occasion, the wedding of Sarah Ferguson and Prince Andrew. It was a huge task, involving a great number of people, and required thorough preparation.
It was a monumental undertaking, because the end product is actually something quite simple. It's basically a group, if you can simplify it, it's a group of people standing in a room, to simplify it. But look at the people. At one point, there were all these cleaning ladies that were cleaning the whole room in readiness for the event. And we asked these 18 cleaning ladies, these Mrs. Mops, if they could possibly stand in as a lighting test. And I was at the top of this 15-foot ladder photographing these cleaning ladies. And I had rehearsed many times that when I was going to be introduced to the Queen, what I would say. But suddenly I heard this voice saying, which one's me? So I looked down the ladder and it was the Queen. So the last position that you want to be in, actually, when you meet the Queen, is I think at the top of the ladder with her at the bottom of the ladder. However, she was wonderful, of course, and had a great sense of humor about all of the events that were taking place. And, well, we had actually an old hooter from a car that we blasted every 2 seconds just to kind of wake everybody up, as it were, because there was so much kind of tension in the room, positive energy, as if you can call it that, electricity, with all of these people in that one room at the one time, that I think everybody's attention, it was very difficult to hold everybody's attention, especially the children, because the children, having sat still in the church for so long, were completely, being children, were full of life, energy, and didn't want to sit down, even if it was only for 3 or 4 minutes.
Well, I'm delighted to say that everyone was very pleased with the results. Were you?
I think I was. I think that you have to look at your... You always look back at a project like that and say, how would you do it differently if you could do it again tomorrow? And I would do it again tomorrow. I think I was happy with the results. I think that the photography was very vibrant, and I think that we captured some of the saturations of color of the event, the color not only of what everybody was wearing, but somehow the magic of the event we got onto some of the film. And I think that when you project these photographs on a wall very large, let's say 12 feet high, I think it's a photograph I'll always be quite proud to show to anybody.
David Bailey is 27 years old and he lives in North London, just around the corner from where he was born. The house is rented from Islington Council, and although David has built his own darkroom here, he must rent a studio nearby or use his tiny living room for taking photographs. David believes that fashion photography portrays black people in idealistic rather than realistic terms, and his work concentrates on challenging what he sees as the false stereotyping of black people.
When we come to like images such as these, on an exhibition that I worked on called Positive Images of Black People, what I wanted to show was to engage people in images of black people that were kind of like visually aesthetic, because there is this convention that, you know, images of black people aren't visually aesthetic. Yet at the same time, I wanted to kind of engage people invisibly to say that, well, you know, black people can do other things such as the normal kind of stereotypical images that you see of black people. You know? And again, with this image of Joe Bones, a lot of images of Rastafarians are very kind of, in the mainstream media, seen as very, very threatening. I.e., you see them in the kind of like, if it's not in the right situation, it's always in a kind of a threatening situation in society. In this picture, I wanted to show Joe Bones with his children in a kind of more non-threatening role, in a kind of like, in some sense, in kind of like a passive role. And again, this is how he wants to be photographed.
With his family.
With his family. I always think it's quite interesting and much more explorative to actually challenge a kind of like stereotypes and images that are kind of much more accessible to a majority of people. So in this image, this is the British Museum. And a lot of people say, well, okay, what has the British Museum got to do with black people? If you look at the history of the British Museum, it's one of like appropriation and one of control, appropriating lots and lots of artifacts from lots of countries, particularly like Africa, Asia, and bringing it back within this country. Yeah. Now, to me, that's very kind of symbolic of the way like photography operates. I can take a picture of something and then take it out of that context and then bring it back into my own context, i.e. the gallery or i.e. my portfolio or whatever, taking things from one context into another. And in that process of taking things from one context to another, you lose the meaning, or you lose that kind of, if you want to call it, that essential moment or that essential truth. In the images of the British Museum, what I wanted to show was that the mummies are the most significant part of the image. The people are ghost images, yeah? I have to explore in a different direction and make people question or make people think about what they're looking a bit more. Now, the British Museum is, to me, a good example of that questioning process, yeah?
If the photograph doesn't immediately convey the message, do you consider that a failure?
Not necessarily so. You have to remember, there's like millions and millions of different photographs, and lots of people get different things from photographs. My photographs aren't to please every single person in the world. I mean, some people get something out of my photographs. Some people won't get things out of my photographs. A lot of my work is about the complexity of images and how images give off meanings and give off messages. And my work is exploratory, it's not definitive.
Leaning back.
Albert's photographs must be immediately understandable to a mass audience. His job is to sell an image, a product, or an idea. And commercial photography doesn't come cheap.
It's very expensive to shoot here. Models are very expensive. Hair, makeup, stylists, locations can be a lot of money. If you're shooting on city property, for example, it doesn't cost you anything because basically the city feels that you're advertising New York. That's your cheapest location in New York, in fact, is the city itself. The minute that you shoot in somebody's apartment, however, it jumps to anywhere up to about $2,000 to $3,000 a day just to use somebody's bedroom, for example, as a background, you know. As far as the cost of models are concerned, very often we're shooting with 2, 3, 4 models a day. A model in New York is costing anywhere between $3,500 to $5,000 a day right now. So the fees can quickly get up to about $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 sometime for a 2-day shoot.
Is there a Watson style?
I think that's a very hard question to answer. One of my problems in the work that I'm doing is that I tend to like a lot of different areas of photography. Not many photographers are keen on still lifes and models, for example, as live action. I'm very happy doing a landscape, for example. I can quite happy spending a whole day shooting landscape. I'm quite happy shooting car photography and advertising. One minute I'm shooting a snake inside a shoe, and then another minute I'm in Paris shooting high fashion. Then I'm in the mountains in Scotland doing something there, or I'm shooting swimsuits on a beach in Tahiti. So to define style for me, it really in the end is for someone else to do that rather than me. So my preference right away would be to shoot this.
Is it possible to use the photographs together? Could the magazine?
No, I prefer the purity of a single image here, not as a double, because I think that this one here on the right-hand side here, which is facing Manhattan, is much more interesting than her coming toward, because here she's a model, here is the woman who's looking at Manhattan. It's taken a few minutes perhaps out of a restaurant that could be nearby, and in fact was nearby, and she just has a few moments alone. So therefore I think that this photograph has more romance about it, and also the fact that a girl or a woman photographed from the back, in a way becomes more mysterious, because you're curious about the way she looks. So my choice on this grouping here would be for sure this image here, where she's kind of against the fence, relaxed, and looking at the skyline.
In London, David is also preparing a fashion shoot. He's just as keen to get across a message, but it's more experimental. Less to do with selling a product, more with selling an idea.
What I'm going to try and do is explore some of the things we've been talking about with the issue about black representations in magazines and with black models. Now, the idea of this shoot would be, I purposely chose 4 white dummies to act as white male models, and then I'm going to have Rexford, who is a black model, to interact with the models who are looking but really not looking at the magazines because their faces are blank. So the idea behind that is that the white models are passive and Rexford is very active within the frame, interacting with the models, looking at the magazines, looking at the models, then looking at me. Yeah? So hopefully we should get some interesting shots from that. I wanted to use an idea around black representation that involved white people in it. But at the same time, because of the way white males are portrayed in fashion magazines, which I think is very kind of powerful, I didn't want to give them too much power within the frame. So the models, or the mannequins, I thought would be quite good for that because they're dummies and that's it. I can control and do what I want with them. What we're also going to try and do is play about with skin tone and hair as well, because what Rexford is hopefully we're going to try and do, because Rexford is quite dark to go against the kind of lighter skin tone, but also his hair, he's purposely slicked it back and he's going to make it white as well to give the kind of ambiguous feeling. And also he's going to wear green contact lenses, so it's going to look, you know, who's black and white within all of this.
Rexford, what do you think of David's particular style of photography?
His photography, I think it's fantastic. It's very unusual because, I mean, I look nothing like these people here. And it just completely transforms you once you see it on the black and white.
You've appeared in conventional photographs.
Yes. Many of the conventional photographs you find are a little samey. You look the same as everybody else. You don't look different in any way. Same style, the same type of hair, the same tones, the same lighting. And this is just a little unusual. So I think he's not scared to try anything out of the ordinary, just to see what happens. And it seems to work more often than not.
If looking through Rexford's portfolio, a major magazine sees the work that you've done and they commission you to do an assignment, would you carry along in the same vein, the same theme?
Only if I was given the chance to do it how I want to do it and without any editorial control. Otherwise, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it at all.
This point of view, Albert might regard as rather a luxury, for he has many demands made on him by his clients. However, he does have complete artistic control, as I was about to find out. Tell me about what we're going to do here, Albert.
Okay, rather strange shooting here, Gene, I'm afraid, for you. We're shooting snakes inside a snakeskin shoe.
Live snake?
I think it's going to be alive. We hope it's alive. So let me get the shoe on and then I'll get kind of set up. Freddie? Let me just see. Okay.
This one is probably a little more distinctive.
Sure, that's terrific. Okay. So here's the shoe, Gene. Right here. Okay, so let's just stabilize the shoe here. Okay, I think we see enough of the shoe there. We'll rough it just now and then see what it looks like. All right, Gene, I think the snake's ready for you over there. We'll use the second snake on the left. So go ahead and maybe you can bring it in for me.
Right.
Don't be nervous, Gene.
Oh, snake. All right. Jesus!
Go ahead. All right, very gently. They're very fragile. So just bring it right in here. And as a matter of fact, you put it right inside that shoe. Because there's no way I'm touching that snake. Go ahead.
Put in the shoe.
Okay. Bill, maybe you can give him a hand here before he does something horrible with the snake here.
Take the snake.
I have a great love of the studio,
Yeah.
and I have a great love of location. I have no preference really between them. After traveling for 7 weeks, for example, it's a pleasure to come into the studio. And after being in the studio for 6 weeks, 7 weeks, it's a pleasure to travel. What the beauty of a studio is sometimes is the fact that it is a studio. And it has a thing in itself. I think that in a way, the nice thing is that you can be creative with light. You can make the light happen a certain way. You know, you can bring the gold out of the shoe. You can bring the snakeskin out of the shoe here. You can have the perfect light on the snake that you want to. So it becomes a thing in itself. A lot of the still lifes I do, I'm looking for very, very, very simple solutions. Something as obvious as a snakeskin shoe and using a snake with it. I think it's almost the most obvious thing you can possibly do. I've done a waterproof watch inside a goldfish bowl, which is about also as obvious as you can get. So the challenge is how you can take something very simple like this and very, very, very obvious like this and make something from it. And in the end, it's up to you, to the public, to come to a conclusion whether or not it's been successful.
Are there any underlying messages in pictures that you take, both personally and...
Well, I'm taking photographs completely, almost in an emotional way. I see an image and I record the image. As far as an underlying message, what you're looking at is my way of seeing things, my way of seeing the world. So therefore, as far as an underlying message, the underlying message is very, very, very simple, is the way I see the world. Either the imagery is working for you completely, that's the beauty of photography, is how it affects people. Either it is affecting you or it isn't affecting you. There is nothing more depressing than to have someone look at one of your pictures in a magazine and go by it without even looking at it, because in some way or other the imagery may have failed, or that person's just not aware or tuned into your imagery. So therefore, as far as an underlying message is concerned, it's really up to the viewer to discover that, explore it, and I let him worry about it. I'm doing it completely emotionally. I'm very excited about doing black and white photography because black and white photography is surreal. We're not seeing any color. We see in color. So in a way, I think photographers feel it brings them a little bit closer to painters because painting in itself is a surreal exercise. The photograph is an instant kind of medium. It's almost like video, and therefore should communicate immediately the idea, the ambience that was there when I originally took the picture. Here I was fascinated by the beauty of the collarbones, the shoulders, the play of light across there, and then somehow this tremendous energy. It looks like she's bursting out of the shirt. There's a lot of drama here. There's a lot of power. You can almost visualize the expression on her face here.
Bearing in mind David Bailey's earlier views on exhibits in the British Museum, I was interested and surprised to learn what Albert would most like to photograph next.
There is one set of objects that I would in fact like to photograph and that I hope to be photographing later this year, which is a set of accessories that was owned by Tutankhamun that are now in the Cairo Museum. Sandals, gold nails, bracelets, headgear, Tutankhamun's wig.
If I could grant you a single wish, insofar as a commission, what would you like to photograph?
Nelson Mandela.